So let's talk to Brendan Clarke-Smith. He's a Conservative MP and joins us. Good morning to you, Brendan.
Morning, Julian. How are you?
Very well. Are you any the wiser about what this plan is? 350 pages. There's some practical stuff. There's a philosophy behind levelling up. But it's fundamentally, we're told, reducing inequality between the North and the South. But what is the actual agenda? What is the plan? What does it actually involve that is going to achieve that aim?
I mean, to put it in basic terms, you're improving transport in the infrastructure there. A lot of places, that's a severe barrier to a lot of the economic growth that's there. It's about revolutionising the planning system. There's a lot of brownfield sites that aren't used there. We want to be able to protect the green belt, but we also need to be able to build those houses so younger people, families can get on the ladder, really. It's about making sure and redesigning our town centres so they're actually fit for the 21st century as well. We've seen how retail has changed. We want a bit of reimagining there, but also with education as well. The Prime Minister made a big deal about this at conference and saying that while ability is evenly distributed across the country, opportunity isn't. So it's making sure that we tackle some of those educational inequalities, get into families early with that extra support and so on.
Well, how are we going to do all that? I mean, it all sounds great. I mean, what would we not agree with there? And we're told it's a lot of these pledges, about a dozen of them, are going to be enshrined in law and supposed to be achieved by 2030. You set a deadline, you set a attainment goal. The question is, how are you going to do it without the big cash? By all accounts, there's been quite a lot of wars between the Treasury and the Levelling Up Department to get that extra cash. These sorts of aims cost billions, not just billions, tens of billions of pounds. And I've not seen hide nor hair of any of that level of money.
Well, some of it costs a lot of money, yes, but then other parts of it, it's more about improving what we've currently got. So I mentioned, for example, what they're doing with brownfield sites and planning. Now, the planning system that we've got has probably needed overhauling for a very, very long time. Even with schools, you can look at what we did with academies, the way we changed that. It's about how they're managed, how they're run as well. So I think we shouldn't get too caught up in this idea that we've got to throw millions and millions all the time at town centres and other things, and that's going to suddenly solve all the problems. I mean, there's a lot of structural societal issues there. So we can't really focus just on one thing. It has to be a much bigger plan. And when Michael Gove comes on later, I'm sure he's going to go into more detail why that is and why he's got such a big remit. A
lot of people might also wonder, I mean, OK, we know we've had the lockdown. We've had COVID with the pandemic. We've had lockdowns. There's been a lot of other stuff on the government agenda. We're told this is Boris Johnson's big plan. This is his big philosophy. I do wonder, though, the Tories have been in power, either in coalition or on their own, since 2010. It's 2022 now. Has this not occurred to any Tories before now, that it might be a good idea to tackle inequality between the North and the South?
Well, I think there's always been a bit of that there, of course. When you're in coalition, you have to make compromises. There's a lot of things we did achieve together in coalition. You can look at, for example, tax allowances that we got for people on lower incomes, what we did with the minimum wage and increasing that. But it's not just at that end of the market, so to speak. You've got to look at those high-skilled jobs in regions as well. So we're moving forward with things like how we're developing with energy. We're looking forward at things like free ports and stuff like that as well. And I think with leaving the European Union, it's opened up a lot of opportunities for us as well.
Except there's nothing here that we couldn't have done whilst in the EU.
Some of it, yeah, but then it also takes a majority, Julia. It's taken us quite a long time to build that in. We've had a couple of very difficult years with COVID, and I think that's sped up a lot of the changes. You see how people are working from home. I mean, that's even changed the way things work in London. So levelling up, it's not just about the North as well. I mean, there's a lot of these seaside towns, a lot of places in the South as well that have got the same thing. Yeah. So it's about the big ideas, not just about throwing money again.
OK, in terms of the big ideas, we've spent a lot of time not talking about big ideas, but talking about Partygate in the last few weeks. A lot of people might say it's irrelevant. A lot of people think it doesn't matter. A lot of people think, like me, it's not about cheese and wine or a few glasses of Prosecco or anything. It is about a Prime Minister and Number 10 staff who think they are, for some reason, above the law that they impose on everyone else in terms of taking away so many of our fundamental freedoms over the last couple of years. Do you think the Prime Minister is over the worst of this and that he is going to survive, and things like the levelling up agenda and, who knows, war in Ukraine are actually going to take the heat off him and he's going to survive as Prime Minister?
Well, that's what most people are on the doorstep are saying, Julia, and I think the mood has changed significantly over the last couple of weeks, and people are quite understandably very angry. You know, we've followed the rules, both you and I, even though we're not particularly happy about a lot of them. And, you know, that's how the public feel. They want to see fairness, and that's why we we're so anticipating.
So he should go then, shouldn't he?
Well, I don't think so. I think everyone deserves a fair hearing. I think from what I've seen from the Sue Gray report, it's about taking responsibility. And I think when you're at the top of an organisation...
That's how you take responsibility, isn't it? When you've been found doing something that was wrong, that was against the law, and if you're the Prime Minister and found, on the face of what he's already told us, we know it's not a question of debate. We know he's lied to Parliament. He should resign, shouldn't he?
I don't believe he has, Julia. I think based on the information the Prime Minister
he said he didn't
got,
know. He said there were no parties. He didn't know of any parties. Then he admitted going to parties. He just didn't think there were parties. But anyone, 3 years and older would recognise them as parties.
Well, I mean, we've got to remember that Downing Street's a workplace as well, and there's very much a grey area there.
No, there isn't a grey area. I was in a workplace throughout this. It wasn't a grey area at all. You weren't allowed to have work events that weren't purely about work. If there's a trestle table full of sausage rolls and booze, it ain't about work.
But this isn't just about the Prime Minister as well, Julian. The Sue Gray report actually encompasses the wider work culture that's around there as well.
And who says that?
He has apologised for it, though.
That's okay. So the next time I'm caught breaking the law, and the next time the 120,000 people who got fined for breaking the COVID rules, just the ones that were broken by the Prime Minister and his staff, they could have just apologised instead of being fined. That's good to know.
If somebody's broken the rules and the Met say that, then there's the opportunity to give those fixed penalty notices out. And I would expect anybody who's done that to receive a fixed penalty notice the same as anybody else, Julia. In terms of the Prime Minister, obviously, he wasn't at a lot of these things that were listed. The things that are, I think he's given an explanation for that. And Sue Gray's made some recommendations. So I think we should just at least wait before drawing conclusions.
OK, Brendan Clarke-Smith, appreciate you joining us. A very loyal